Goes deep.
That's incredible. So you're late to the Pluribus party.
Yeah.
You're 3 episodes in. How you feeling so far?
I think it's one of those shows that I'm either going to love it based off of if they can land this plane or not. You know? But by like how you've talked about it and how our friend Leah has talked about it, it seems like whatever the ending of season 1 is interesting enough to warrant the weirdness of what's going on now.
Yeah. I've had this very weird feeling the entire time watching it because it is a very weird show. It simultaneously, and everybody I feel like says this when talking about it, is that like the way that the show is designed is that it can open itself up to go down a myriad of different avenues and opportunities that they can explore. And while I agree with it, where it almost does feel in some respects limitless, it also does feel very restrictive in some regards because of the way that the collective behaves and the fact that there's a small group of people that are immune to it as of right now, and the collective's sort of desire for everybody to be part of it.
Yeah.
So you know that there's that sort of tension there, but in terms of being able to like globetrot around and have anything you want or whatever, like it does feel like that sort of gift that the show narratively can give will eventually, I feel, run out, where it's like you have to give me something more. And all I'll say is that I think where they left it off, while not like this huge like mic drop moment, it does have me excited to be like, okay, now I want to, not that I was like pulling back or like trepidatious of wanting to continue, but like the hook is still there. I'm still intrigued, and I want to continue to see where this goes. Now they could flip and butcher this thing after a season or two, and it could just completely crash and burn. But as of right now, it's still skating with both legs.
And I feel like I'm good with that. Like I don't need this sort of cliff. I don't know. It feels wrong to call season 1 of Severance finale like a cliffhanger, but it is that sort of moment where you're like, oh, wow, like this is just a fundamental change of what we've been seeing for the first season. But I feel like, I don't know, I'm kind of feeling like it's on the same wavelength as The Leftovers, and where you don't get the answer to everything that they've posed within the world of The Leftovers. Like you don't know why they got snatched, but you have enough that it feels like the time that you spent was worthwhile. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. 3.5-ish episodes in. But I'm curious. I never watched Breaking Bad either, so
Okay, so that's another interesting thing is like for me, if I was somebody that has not been exposed to Vince Gilligan and Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, like I would maybe be a little bit more resistant to the show, I suppose, or give it a bit more skepticism. But like I do trust him, because I think both of those shows are quintessential television and very good stories. So like an original vehicle from him is very exciting to me, and so I'm along for the journey, and it feels like a lot of people are also just like bought into this strange world. And I think a lot of the conversations and questions and sort of moral sort of like back and forth and theories it raises, I think it makes for exciting sort of water cooler conversation, which I'm a huge fan of when it comes to television. I prefer the week to week versus like a huge binge drop.
Absolutely.
I do want to touch, I know we're doing a lot of TV talk here on our movie podcast, but I do want to just tag and echo your sentiments on The Leftovers, which is one of my favorite television shows.
It's incredible.
Absolutely brilliant. And to that end, you're right that the sudden departure and a lot of the other weird sort of events that occur in that show, some of them are answered, some of them are left ambiguous. And I think that the way that they are able to navigate that is incredibly well calculated and it's thoughtful. But it also, while it's asking those questions, you're almost in the same position as these characters, which is like, you're not supposed to know. You're supposed to be left wondering. You're supposed to be just as confused as these people. But where I feel like the show gets that sense of fulfillment and it can sort of skirt around giving you those answers is that it invests fully in like the drama and the relationships of the characters.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that you end up leaving the show with, is the journey that those characters go on and the sort of growth that they experience. And I think that that is a perfect example of what Pluribus could end up being, in terms of we don't necessarily need to know X, Y, and Z of everything that's going on. We can maybe get a little bit of those answers, but it's also totally okay for it to be left open to interpretation and for conversation.
I think it all comes down to whether or not the show is acting like it has more answers than it's telling the audience. I feel like it's something that has kind of come up with the end of Stranger Things, which I have not watched, but I've seen a lot of people kind of go like, that was it? That's the answers to the things that we're getting, when like the foreshadowing and everything that had built up before it made it seem like there was some grand, huge answer coming. And I feel like with The Leftovers, you never get the sense that the show is the show knows more than it's letting on. It's kind of like, it is crazy that 2% of the world's population just disappeared. And like, that is where it lives. And it feels like Pluribus so far is in that same boat of like, it knows more about the collective than I know at this point, but I'm in the same boat as Carol, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Of like, she is trying her best to figure it out, but it doesn't, so I think that is ultimately what makes me feel good about continuing on, is that it's not gonna, it knows where it wants to go.
Like all good television, good stories are good stories, and we're here to talk about
transitions, Nick.
These transitions are so good. We're here, episode 4. I think you'll hate this. It's a movie podcast, and I told you before we recorded, I was like, I'm going to like nail these intros and outros and these transitions so that it can start to feel more like a professional uniform podcast. But we're a bit a ways from that. But
I'm just happy that you're taking on that burden and not me, because I don't feel like it's in my wheelhouse. I would just be like,
okay,
yep, next.
What's next on the docket? I don't mind taking on that responsibility. I will get better at it as we go. But we're here for another episode, and a lot to talk about. We are now, third week into the new year, January. We're still gearing up, new releases and everything. We've got a lot to talk about, but we'll start our episode like we always normally do with a news story. Tina, I believe this is your episode. If there's something you want to chat about. I wait with bated breath.
Yeah. So this is from we support journalists here. So KERA News, which is a local NPR outlet in Austin. I am intrigued by Alamo's new decision to change how you can order food at the movie theater. I'm assuming you've been to an Alamo. You used to live in Austin.
I used to work for Alamo, actually.
Oh, well, there you go. So you know this intimately.
Yeah, I do.
Do you want to explain the old way of like how you would order food or anything? Like if you needed anything at the Alamo, what their process was?
For sure. So Alamo Drafthouse, based primarily out of Austin, Texas, but they have since franchised and branched to a lot of locations in the United States. Very famous for its no talking, no texting policy. If you are talking or texting, they usually will give you a warning. And then upon the second warning, they will eject you from the theater with no refund. They very much believe in showing a lot of great prestige movies, 35 millimeter prints, weird sort of like film screening series like Terror Tuesdays and Weird Wednesdays, where you can find some like odd video nasty sort of like back of the shelf type videos and movies. And so what they usually do when you go there is they have servers and runners and people that will deliver you food, drink, whatever you need. The typical way of doing it is before the movie starts, servers come by, take your order, do all that jazz. But there's these order cards and these pins. And underneath the tables of each of the seats, there's like a little light, and you can go underneath there and with your menu or whatever, write down the order that you need and stick it up on your table. There's like a little slit where you can slip the order card over there. And they have servers that come by and see them, grab it, run away, and bring you your order.
Well, some of them have buttons too. Some of them have like put the order card up and then you push a button, and then like I guess they must get notified somewhere in the back, and then they come and they take your order card.
That's a new development as of like probably the past like 6 or 8 years. Yeah. When I used to work there, they were just starting to migrate into that system. You'll hit the button, and in the back of the theater, there's a server station, and then it just lights up on their display like, hey, this row, this seat needs something. And then you run up there and grab the order card.
Yeah.
A lot of people though just hit the button and then the server will come over and then they're like, yeah, can I get some buffalo chicken wing? And it's like, no, dude, stop it. It's not a perfect process. I know there's a lot of people that are like, why would you ever order an entire meal and stuff and watch a movie and yada yada? So it's like, I get that there's the detractors, there's the people that don't like it, but I'll let you continue with your story. They're segueing away even further from where they started with just order cards and a button, and now something else.
To something that feels wholly antithetical to the brand that they've created. And it's you now order through a mobile app, which everybody loves a mobile app. And like, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, everyone seems to be transitioning to mobile apps. But it feels so strange that a theater chain built on no talking and no texting is now asking you to pull out your phone to order. And they say that they have some sort of technology where it's going to like auto dim. You know how like some places, like when you have a ticket through Ticketmaster or AMC, it like auto brightens it.
Brightens it.
So they're going to have some technology that's going to auto dim it. But when I turn on my phone to unlock it, it's going to be this bright ass photo of my white dog shining in the light. And so it doesn't make sense. And a lot of people are really upset about it. And a lot of people are considering canceling they have something similar to A-List, so they're considering canceling that as well. But people are also concerned that this is going to eliminate a lot of people's jobs as food runners and servers. And so that was after they had just like increased the amount of tips that they were giving to Alamo servers. So it just feels, I don't know, it feels, as someone who worked there, does it feel like antithetical to who Alamo Drafthouse has always said that they are?
It does. And I think people like myself and people that were with Alamo and lived in Austin in sort of like the old days, like when it was kind of punk rock in a lot of ways to like go see a movie at the Alamo Drafthouse because of like the unique styles of the theater, the type of films that they show. And I mean, there's a reason why Fantastic Fest is hosted at the Alamo Drafthouse South Lamar, and the very presentation of how that event is run and all the after parties is all very much the lifeblood of Alamo Drafthouse and its nature. And so it feels, yes, antithetical to their mission statement and the way that they've conducted their business. It just feels like another sort of just another natural step of their degradation since they've kind of become a franchise. And they've gone through all sorts of different things with CEO Tim League leaving, and then there was like bankruptcy, and then I think Sony Pictures Studios bought Alamo Drafthouse, and then there's all these franchises, and then it's like, are you part of that one, or is it like a mom and pop owned franchise in like Nebraska or something like that? And so I think everybody that has been with Alamo from like the very early stages of it in Austin, which was like primarily the Ritz location, which was located on 6th Street, which is now Joe Rogan's comedy club. Rest in peace.
Yikes.
So people from back in that time, I think we've all slowly just started to see the niche and the love and the uniqueness of Alamo Drafthouse slowly get shaved off until it's become something that is kind of unrecognizable. And I think it's all an effort to make it more commercial and more franchisable, in which case you have to kind of sand off the edges of some of these rules, because like, how are you going to go get the suburban families or whatever in all these different states and cities to go to this location if they're very like ardent about all these rules and how these things are done, and the way to order things isn't as easy or whatever. So like, it just feels like it's a watered down version of what it used to be. And I fear that it will just continue to become a poorer version of itself. The closest location to me is in Indianapolis, Indiana. It's about less than 2 hours away from me. I've gone a number of times since they've opened. I believe that they're on year 2 since they first launched. And I don't frankly know how that location is still functioning, because like I've checked like recently to see like, you know, what are the ticket sales or whatever for like Wicked for Good this past year, and like opening weekend, like not a single sold out theater.
Wow. I mean,
for Wicked for Good.
Right. That's not good. I don't know where my closest one is. We don't have any in Pittsburgh. I think there was
is weird.
I mean, not really.
There should be.
There should. I mean,
don't know.
I don't want it. I don't want it now unless they go back to my paper. I don't want to
Right.
use an app. But I think maybe like DC, somewhere in like the DC Silver Spring area, I think has one. But I've only ever been to the LA one, the Wrigleyville one, someone in San Antonio, and then one in the South Lamar one in Austin for South by Southwest. But to me, it just kind of feels like, and not to like bring it all about capitalism, it feels like Alamo was never meant to be an AMC, like brand wise. No. It was never meant to be that sort of size of a movie theater, but it was always meant to be a flourishing, sturdy company for any city or town that has an interested movie fan base. And I think that that is something that mentality doesn't exist sometimes with the people who are making the decisions. It's like, oh, well, people in Austin love the Alamo Drafthouse, so people in Indianapolis are going to love the Alamo Drafthouse. And maybe the reason that they think that they don't love it is because they don't like the phone ordering system or the paper ordering system. But the real problem is that it's not that as much of a tuned in film audience in the way that Austin or New York or LA has. And you see it a lot, like to bring it back to the TV shows that we were talking about earlier. So many TV shows go on past their prime. And I guess so many franchise movies too do the same thing because people can't see, you can have too much of a good thing. And like, I think that is ultimately what is kind of happening here is like, you have a great thing with Alamo. You have such a like loving fan base. You have to figure out how to grow that fan base rather than change it so that your original locked in fan base doesn't change on you, you know?
Funny story about one of my times working at Alamo's. I was a server and I was working in, it was one of the smaller theaters, so it maybe held like 35 people or whatever. But I was working a quiet place. And so that was a notoriously difficult movie to work because it is so damn quiet and you have to be quiet. But the other hard thing about that is that by like 45, 50 minutes into the movie, you already have to do last call. And so like I've got like food coming into my kitchen and I'm already having to print checks. And so like I'm printing checks, but still handing people food. And then by the time I was so frazzled because all the food was still coming and I was trying to print checks and people were still ordering food that the movie ended. And I made the mistake of when I printed the checks, I didn't like, there were people that pre-swiped and I didn't close out the pre-swipes. And so I ended up having basically a large portion of the theater all come to me and say like, hey, I need to pay you. Like, what is this? And then I'm like, oh shit. And so like my manager on duty had to come over and basically we had to one by one, like cash people out or whatever, because I just printed them the check and never like took the money or whatever.
And
it was
you
madness.
Famously have been saying you believe that longer movies shouldn't happen. And yet you had this traumatic incident of a short movie happen to you. And you still don't believe that movie should be 2 hours.
But, well, hang on. I don't mind when a movie's 2 hours. I appreciate movies that are 90 minutes these days because it feels like every movie is 2 hours and 20 or almost 3 hours. Yeah. But I will say that if somebody dropped me in an Alamo right now and they said, hey, A Quiet Place is running again and I have a full theater, like, do you think that you could dust the cobwebs off your brain and get back into it and nail it? I think I could do it.
Somebody test him. Somebody rent out an Alamo and make him do it.
I'll do it by myself. I just need people to help me run the food. I'll take care of it. Man.
All right. Well, that's our news for the week.
That's our news for the week. And let's get on to our main topic of the show. And you know what? The conversation we're about to have, I did not think we were going to be having.
No, because you don't believe me. You just think I'm a hater through and through, and you don't believe me.
And you know what? That remains to be. I still feel like that's a correct assessment for me because there are a lot of movies that you and I like super don't agree on that like I really like that you don't like, and there are movies that I like you like and I don't like, you know? And I mean, that's kind of like the whole reason one of the reasons we started this podcast was that like we so often disagree on things, and it's very funny, and it's wonderful when we do like meet in the middle on a movie. And I think going into this year, there was a movie from last year that I think we both like universally really, really like. And we'll probably discuss a little bit of it today, but we're probably going to discuss it maybe a little bit more in depth come our 2025 wrap up, which we'll do probably on the next episode, I think. So let me just first off start by saying you were right. I was wrong.
I just want that looped over and over and over and over and over again.
Now, I will say I didn't hate it.
Okay.
I wanted more. I don't know what I thought this was going to be, but this wasn't it. And the movie that we're talking about is 28 years later, The Bone Temple.
It brings me no joy.
Big fan.
I know that I just celebrated, but it brings me no joy that I did not enjoy this movie. It brings me joy that I was right about you also not enjoying it.
Yeah, this is it's a somber way to continue to, be in the second or third week of 2026, follow up to an honestly incredible movie of 28 years later, which came out of left field for me. I mean, I'm not a huge 28 Days, Weeks fan. I think they're fine movies. I respect what Danny Boyle and Alex Garland did with that initial film, and I even think Weeks is not bad for what it's worth. I mean, with Boyle and Garland not involved.
Yeah.
And going into summer of 2025, I was not expecting for 28 years later to be as good as it was and to have the impact it did on me, that by the time looking back on 2025, I can confidently say it is like a top movie of the year for me.
Same.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. I mean, so much about it. I was not expecting. I watched 28 Days and Weeks, I think like a week or two before I saw 28 Years, because I was like, I guess I should like see what's going on
Brush
here.
up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was like, neither one of these is really doing it for me. I mean, I don't really love but 28, and I usually don't like Alex Garland. So I was very hesitant about 28 Years. Yeah. And it's just, I think that it was such a beautiful, melancholy look of a world trying to make sense again. And I think that is like deeply sad. And that is what I loved about the movie is, yes, it had zombies. Yes, it had crazy zombie attacks and fights and all of that. It had that like high octane thrill of it. But then it was also just like, how do people grieve when it's this scale of something that it, touches so far beyond anything that you can conceive of? And I think that, and then how do you handle being a kid who was born into this and knows nothing else of it? So I think that was so interestingly done in 28 Years later.
Yeah. I mean, it's a coming of age film too. And it's a movie dealing with isolation, and it's a movie dealing with like what is beyond sort of our scope of view of the world. And it, like, is there a way for us to move forward and to build a better world? And it asked a lot of questions. It had a lot of emotional heft to it. The Bone Temple in particular, that whole sequence, riding it out to the end of that movie is some of my favorite moments in going to a movie in quite some time. And it's probably one of my favorite scenes of the past year. And, the movie ends with a very noticeably loud and weird ending.
Yeah.
With a cadre of interesting characters led by Jack O'Connell.
That's my guy.
And it promises something interesting. And it's not that I didn't like necessarily what they did with some of those characters and where it ended up. It just ultimately, it felt like a middle part of a movie. It felt like, and I think I described it to you over text. I was like, it feels like a drawn out middle episode of a season.
Yes.
With not a lot of payoff. And I'm like, what am I supposed to get out of this?
So my and this may sound ironic coming from me, who's my most anticipated movie in the year of this year is The Bride, but it's truly like everyone in Hollywood just reread Frankenstein and is like, oh, humans are the bad guys. And I'm like, yes, I get it. Like, I understand that that's exactly what we're doing here, but you have the doctor play a good guy, but the humans are like inherently, the roving band of Jimmies. Because like that whole sequence with the infected Samson, like tell me that that's not supposed to be Frankenstein, like Frankenstein's monster. Like the whole thing just feels like Hollywood. Because there's another movie last year, Tron Ares, a banger. But it was another one that I was like, did we all just remember Frankenstein as a really good book and we're all just using that again? And that to me is what 28 years, like the Bone Temple wanted to be, but it didn't have any sort of depth to it, and it was so much filler. And the problem was that it had interesting concepts, but they were glossed over in like 30 seconds. Like one of the main stories is Ray Fiennes' character sort of accidentally discovering that he might be on the path to a cure for the rage virus, but the time that it takes for him to like create a bond with Samson is minuscule in comparison to the time that he's just like, well, what if we dance together in the field? And I'm like, what? What are we doing? Which I think could have been a beautifully earned moment if there was a little bit more of a struggle to get there. And I feel like it spent a lot of time in areas that didn't really do anything to move the plot along. And I think that was what I was most disappointed by, was the script. Because I think Nia DaCosta's direction was good. It was a different take on it all. But I think the problem is squarely in the script.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned being not necessarily an Alex Garland fan. I typically find myself good with the productions and stuff that he works on. Huge fan of Ex Machina and Annihilation.
What about Men?
I have a good time watching that movie because it is utterly bonkers.
You've seen it multiple times?
I own it, and I've seen it at least 3 times. I think it's an insane... It's one of those movies, and I don't know if it was like 28 years later where I had the same feeling with the end with the Jimmies, where I was just like, oh, we're just going to go there. Okay, cool. Let's just get nuts. And Men has a sequence, an extended, prolonged sequence of, oh, we're just going to do this. And the fact that that was put... I don't care. It's something I've never seen before. I'm not going to try to justify that it makes sense or that it has merit. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I'm not going to do an essay on it. There are some things I've never seen before that I never needed to see. I don't need to see a man's face come out of the same man's butthole. That's not necessary. Well, I'm also the guy that was complaining about the lack of, monkeys ripping off.
That's true. That's true. I do agree with you about Annihilation, though. I think Annihilation is a great movie, and that I think it's very underseen. But I really liked Annihilation.
So with this one, yeah, I agree. Bone Temple, written by Alex Garland again. But like you said, Nia DaCosta directing it. I think her direction is great. I think I watched Hedda recently per your recommendation.
Let's go.
Great movie. I loved her Candyman movie. Mm-hmm. I think that's also a really good horror flick as well. So I didn't have any doubts whether she would be capable of like continuing this on. I think the craft is all there. I think also once you can kind of sort of like settle into your seat that this is going to be a different movie from a tone and pacing and editing way, because 28 years later, I mean, the way I described it, like to some folks when I came out of it, was like, it just feels punk rock. Just like the way that like it's directed, the shooting style with like iPhones, like the sort of bullet time, sort of like way the camera rotates and stuff. Mm-hmm. The boots sequence,
that's such
with
a
the
beautiful
overlaying
sequence
of like the sort of like Arthurian sort of like medieval knights and stuff like that, and the needle drops, the music from Young Fathers, like all of it felt incredibly exhilarating and just stylistic, and you don't get a lot of that with this one. And I think that has to do with, getting a different composer, and obviously Nia DaCosta approaching it with her own style and the way that she wanted to continue the story. I don't have any problem with that. I think, again, to your point, I just come up feeling a bit empty because the script feels hollow. It feels like it doesn't have anything all that insightful to say about anything that's going on. It just felt very pedestrian. And I just, when the movie ended, I was like, okay, well, why did we do any of this?
And my main thing, you talk about the ending of 28 Years Later with all of the introduction of the Jimmies, and I love Jack O'Connell. So I think I was so excited to see him as like when he got second bill after Rafe, I was like, oh yeah, we're cooking now. And I was so excited. But the Jimmy character is based off of a real guy who the characters in the film, at like, if we're talking about like them as real people, would only know him as the famous Top of the Pops DJ, but don't know that after he dies, he is outed as this horrible child predator. But we, as the audience, do. And so I was kind of like, okay, this is a very strange choice that they are making to have them all styled after him. And I'm willing to withhold my judgment about it until we get this one, because I was like, surely they're going to do something. There's a purpose behind it. And I think that is what was really infuriating to me, is that there was no purpose behind it. That it's just like, Jimmy Savile was popular, so let's have them all dressed like him. But we, in 2026, know so much more. And I think it could have opened a door for some sort of allegory or some sort of statement of something. Like, I was just desperate for something under that surface, and it just never came. And I think if you are doing this about somebody like Jimmy Savile, you have to be very careful, because a bunch of Americans, come Halloween, there is going to be so many dumb little Americans walking around as a Jimmy. And I just think that that's reckless.
For sure. And it's interesting. I do think, though, that most mainstream audiences probably, I mean, unless they brushed up post 28 Years Later when that character is introduced, probably don't know the real life because I mean, admittedly, I didn't know until 28 Years Later. I was like, this is just a goofy looking character or whatever.
Right.
But like, obviously I have that context, and you have to put yourself in the mind of Alex Garland, who wrote it. And like, that's a very intentional decision to write a character and a group of characters that are dressed like that and behave in the way that they do in this movie and in the one previous. That I think I totally agree with you that, like, I guess I was going into this expecting, like, surely there's going to be some sort of like they're going to like, I'm not looking necessarily for an explanation, but like, this is a unique look, and it's a unique drawing that you're painting towards this person that existed.
Right.
And it doesn't feel like accidental. It wasn't just like, hey, we had a funny idea for a costume or whatever. Like, this is a very deliberate decision, and you don't really do anything with that.
Right.
There's no reason.
You could have put them all in tracksuits like they are without the blonde wig, and you could have had the same effect of, like, you can see so many people throughout British culture throughout the decades wearing these like Adidas tracksuits or Puma tracksuits. Like, that is very much like a streetwear British culture thing. And that I feel like does the same purpose that the making it fully modeled after Jimmy Savile does. Like, it creates that sense of unity, it creates that identity, it puts you in the place of England. But I just feel like it's just so kind of nasty to me that you are making this correlation and then doing nothing with it.
There's two revelations in this movie that I'm curious where we'll go moving forward, which is something you alluded to, which is that Dr. Ian Kelson has potentially found a cure, or is on track to find the cure to the rage virus. Basically, this concoction he creates, which upon reflection, I don't even know how we ended up here. It feels like he was kind of messing around with some stuff.
We had a montage, and then his first try did it. I don't know what you mean, Nick. That's foolproof.
Yeah, but he's like, well, I was going to sort of gradually get us there, but timetables have shrunk now because I'm being sort of held prisoner by Jimmy, and if I don't do this, we're in trouble. So here, take this, and bye-bye. It just felt very rushed.
And it worked.
And it worked. So the idea that the rage virus could be reversed or alleviated to some degree seems to be a takeaway from this movie, but I'm not sure necessarily where that will pick up because of where the movie ends. I don't want to get into any spoilers or whatever, but that revelation could honestly just seep into the background and never be approached again, and I would understand that.
I mean, it might die
because of
with
how
him.
they ended the movie.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
I
it
guess
might
we
die
should-
with Samson.
Yeah.
Could potentially. I don't know. And the ending, again, not gonna spoil this or whatever, but the last 5 minutes of the movie, I mean, I do want to see that movie. And that was probably the most that like I perked up, that I was like, okay, like, yeah, let me see what this is. Like, that's the thing that I'm excited for. Everything else that came before it felt like we were just kind of like spinning our wheels and ramping up to get to that moment.
It feels like a Marvel movie. You know, in
That
like,
last scene did feel like a Marvel movie.
no, just the whole movie in general, where it's like we are throwing a bunch of stuff at the wall, but all like we're trapping you in this theater for 2 hours, but all that's going to really matter to you is the final 5 minutes, because it's the return of something that you wanted, and it's a foreshadowing of the next movie that's going to do the exact same thing, and then we're in the last 5 minutes we're going to give you what you want, which is just like the cycle that Marvel has kind of been doing, and it feels like a Marvel movie in the way of nothing really happening, but not nothing happening in like the way that I like my French art house movies to not have anything happening.
It's obviously things happen in the movie. We follow the Jimmy gang as they terrorize this small group of villagers, and how their path ends up intersecting with the sort of B plot as well of Dr. Kelson and Samson and his quest to try to reverse the rage virus. Those things do happen, but again, the undercurrent of the themes and any sort of messaging or emotional weight that the movie would carry is absolutely absent. It's more like this happens and then this happens and then this happens and then it's over. Well, I don't.
No, go ahead. Finish.
I was just going to say, I don't know what I was supposed to take away out of this in terms of like a larger thematic message from Alex Garland. Like, what is he trying to say with this script? What is he trying to say with these characters beyond what you already said, which is like humanity, man is the problem, is the creature, is the monster or whatever, or is not the well, yeah, they are. And then the scientist, Dr. Ian Kelson, he's, the good guy.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's the same thing of kind of what I think was interesting about 28 Years Later is like the first two movies, first one, or like 28 Days Later, is just pure survival. It is things in mayhem, things in flux, things in chaos, and just Cillian Murphy's character desperately trying to stay alive. The second one, 28 Weeks, they think they have things under control, but it's such a fine militaristic balance of like, we are doing this by force. There's no real sense of security. Any small little dumb choice by two idiotic children can break down everything that we have. Whereas 28 years later, they've reached a stasis of some kind. They've built a new community, a new understanding of what the world looks like. How do they interact with it? And that to me is what I'm always most interested in by, like, going back to The Leftovers. I'm interested in season 2 when they have built a whole community around this place where nobody disappeared. And it's like the societal things that are created and that people cling to, like cults, new religions, new groups, things like that happen in the aftermath of something so fundamentally world altering that we can't even comprehend. I think that changing of the fabric of society as we know it is what is so interesting. And I think that the Jimmys had that had that potential as well, because how are most of these kids, except for lead Jimmy, were probably born during the time of the rage virus. Like, not all of them, they all look younger than 28. So what has kind of led them to this sort of apathetic, violent nature, like to have a sort of, to want to create a new community that is rooted in such violence, such brutality. And I think that's a really interesting means of doing it, because the other humans that we see, contrasted with the ones that we saw in the first 28 Years Later and the ones that we meet that are attacked by the Jimmys in this one, there's a sense of peace. There's a sense of we've created homesteads, we've created self-sufficient communities. We are trying to not kill the infected unless we have to, unless we feel like our lives are threatened. So I'm like, I think that is such the formation of the Jimmies, because there is a religious component to it as well, is such a rich area for them to explore, and for them to just be like, nah, they're just killing people, is so disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, they do provide a little bit of background in terms of like, they allude to a lot of the stuff or reference back to a lot of the stuff from the first movie, because the opening of 28 Years Later with a young boy escaping as the rage virus kicks off, he runs to the local church where his father is a vicar, and his father is overwhelmed and taken by the zombies in a state of jubilee and exultation, basically. And Jimmy is hiding out as this happens and sees his father get mauled and eaten, all that stuff, and become a zombie himself. And so as a young kid, seeing that and experiencing that and being raised in the church or whatever, you can see how he gets spun off into this sort of Satanist sort of, I am doing the Satan's work here. My father was like a leader and summoned these things and was like excited about it or whatever. And so I can understand that explanation, and I can understand like why he came into being who he is. It still doesn't explain the Jimmy, his last name, sorry. Seville, thank you. It doesn't necessarily explain why he's dawning that way, other than like, well, he probably knew that person when he was a young kid and decided to emulate that or whatever, but they don't touch anything with that. And then his aims and goals is just to cause torture and hurt people, which he would call charity.
What do you think the creators of Teletubbies feel about 28 Years Later? I think they're happy.
Is Teletubbies even still on?
I don't know, but who could ever have imagined that someone would do the Tinky Winky dance or whatever it's called?
Dance.
Yeah, before murdering somebody.
That's true. I did get a kick out of that. I liked a lot of those scenes. That whole barn sequence, which was very prolonged, that whole sequence with them and the other villagers and stuff, was harrowing and gross. Yeah. But I just ultimately can't get past the fact that like we're coming from a film that had so much emotional resonance and had clear characters that you're rooting for and care about. Like, I love the character of Spike and the journey that he goes on. Yeah. The relationship he had with his dad, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and his mother in particular by Jodie Comer, and just where that story comes full circle. And there's the whole baby aspect from the last movie and dropping off the baby there and then running away. And so like I had a hard time connecting with anyone in this movie because Spike is very much just regulated to the background in a lot of respects. If he's not in the background while Jimmy and the gang are running around doing their thing, he's crying and begging to just be let go. And then that's it. And then, of course, Ray Fiennes is doing a hella good job. Like, I like seeing him do a bonkers role. He gets to really ham it up in a couple scenes and do some really exciting bits. But ultimately, I don't like where they left his character. I don't know what they're trying to say with this movie other than, like, let's just entertain you for a bit, I guess. And that's fine. Yeah. But, like, when you're coming off of a movie like 28 Years Later, to follow it up with this, it just feels like a step down. It doesn't feel like it's a step forward or above. It feels like a regression more than anything, unfortunately.
Was there an after credits scene? My dad was like, "It's over, we're leaving." So I don't know.
The last 5 minutes of the movie I thought was going to be the post-credit scene. I don't know if there was a post-credit scene, though.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't look further into it because I was kind of like, I don't know. I feel my enthusiasm has waned significantly about whatever is coming next after this movie. So.
Yeah. Quick Google search says that there is not a traditional mid-credit or post-credit scene, but the final scene serves as the critical epilogue.
Makes sense.
I think to kind of like wrap up my feelings on it is that like I had a well enough good time watching it. I think that there's a couple great sequences of suspense and action, some really graphic violence. I think all the performances are very good. I think Jack O'Connell is terrifically deranged as this Jimmy Crystal character. I think that the costumes and the masks that they wear, I think it's very, very exciting and interesting. They described it, I think in interviews prior to this movie coming out, I think Garland or DaCosta maybe described it, that Jimmy's gang was kind of similar to like the Droogs in Clockwork Orange. And I can immediately see that for sure. Like their like weird, playful energy, the dark humor to them. And I liked Ray Fiennes' character. I liked the Samson and like sort of like the interplay that they had of him like trying to cure him. And I like enough of it, but like it's really hard to like celebrate the movie and get excited about it when it just fails to measure up to the gargantuan hit that 28 years later is, and all the cylinders it's firing on. I'm more cautious now going into the third one than I wish I was. I wish I was just like, let's go, I'm ready for the third one.
Yeah.
But after this one, I'm going to be approaching the next one with a little bit more trepidation.
I just want to say shout out to Erin Kellerman. I think she plays Jimmy Inc. Yeah, she is so great in so many movies, and I would love, and such a breadth of movies too. Like she was in Eleanor the Great like 6 months ago, playing a wildly different character. So I really enjoy seeing Erin Kellerman a lot. And that's it. I just think that she is she was in a Star Wars. She was in Solo. Yes. Crazy how people forget that. I don't know. But I think that she is really great, and I would love to see her just like give me like an action movie centered around Erin Kellerman, and I would love that. That
is our thoughts on 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. Not the movie that we thought it was going to be.
No.
Not that it had to be, you know. I mean, like, look, I don't want to be the one to say like the movie needs to be this, that, or the other, but like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess I'm like going through stages of grief, I guess, like, because I was so excited for this movie, man. Like the trailer was great. Like I love the cast. I love Nia DaCosta. I was like, let's go. Alex Garland's writing it. Let's continue this story. Let's find out what's going on. And it just felt very surface level. So,
well, I think what you were saying is really interesting, because I think a lot of critique of when you look at storied franchises of Star Wars or that's all I can think of right now, is people get mad when the movie does not match their expectations of where they wanted the plot to go. And I think that both of our disappointment in this is not because we had perfectly cooked out an idea of where this franchise should go. It's just they had so many paths that they could have taken, and they took none of them. And I think that is the inherent problem. It's not that we had expectations for it and they weren't met. It's that we trusted them and they didn't know how they wanted to continue the story. And I think that's ultimately sadder, I feel like.
A case could potentially be made that you don't even need to see this movie. You could kind of go between 28 Years Later and then whatever this potential third movie is. Yeah. Because not a lot really happens in it. Yeah. It just kind of meanders for a while and things happen and then it ends.
I think it could have been boiled down to a great 30-minute opening of whatever potentially this next part of the story is.
Damn, I could just spin in circles talking about this movie, but I don't want to do that anymore.
No, we got to go on to other movies. Say one's premiering at Sundance.
Oh my goodness.
Look at
Sundance.
That. Look at that transition.
Ahead. I love it. You'll be the transition person.
No, I don't. I don't like that.
Peters off. Sundance Film Festival is around the corner, ladies and gents. This will be the last Sundance in our fair state of Utah. Park City, Salt Lake, all that jazz. It's in Park City, right?
Yes,
Salt Lake.
And I don't know. Salt Lake. Yeah, it's clear that you're not watching The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. It's because Lisa Barlow is the queen of Sundance. I don't know what you're talking about, and she's in Salt Lake City. One day we'll go into my Real Housewives world.
Sundance Film Festival. This will be its last year in Utah before it moves to Colorado. I believe it's in Boulder. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep.
I will be participating in this event, not in person. I'll be doing, this is, I think, my third year of doing online. And this year feels the most deprived of online offerings, in my opinion. The first year that I did it, I think it was actually back in 2020, 2021. The two big movies.
They skated through in 2020. And so they did the full festival in person in 2020. Okay. And then 2021 was their first doing the online.
COVID.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I remember doing that one too. And you could watch The Worst Person in the World there. It was great.
I didn't know. Well, I wasn't following that movie at that time. But I think the only two movies that I remember seeing was Judas and the Black Messiah and I think it's called In the Earth, the Ben Wheatley movie.
Oh, yeah. Maybe The Worst Person was 2022. Maybe I'm off. But it was one of the ones. Yeah.
For sure. And then another year I saw After Yang and Fresh with Daisy Edgar Jones.
Yeah.
Both of those were like huge ones for me. I loved both of those movies a lot. And Twinless also played last year at Sundance. And I bring all this up because looking at the film programming and what's available for online, it just feels like every year the list of offerings that you can watch online shrinks. And I don't know how much of this year was influenced by what happened last year with Twinless, because a lot of people were recording particular sequences from that movie with Dylan O'Brien, and it was leaking all over the internet. They eventually took Twinless off as an option for you to purchase as an online feature. And so a lot of people speculated, is Sundance just going to say, to hell with you guys? Like, we're not going to do this anymore. This is a privilege. I mean, thankfully they're not.
Not to victim blame, but they should have known that the Teen Wolf fans were crazy.
I mean, I don't know enough about the Teen Wolf show, let alone the community that follows it. But that doesn't surprise me. I mean,
they're fervent. Maybe crazy is too strong of a word, but they are dedicated and they are fervent, and they should have known.
Well, it's the same people too that were complaining, and I think rightly so, that like within an hour or two of the final episode of Stranger Things releasing, the ending was all over Twitter and it was all over the internet. And people are like, dude, I'm going to see it in theaters tomorrow. Like, it hasn't even been up an hour and you're already posting the final 10 minutes of the show or whatever. Like, I think that that's just part of the day and age we live in. So,
I mean, I do remember, like, I feel like Gilmore Girls was one of the first things that came back through Netflix that was like, we didn't get to finish the way that we wanted to finish it, so now we're getting our second chance. And there was always this rumor that the woman who created it knew that she wanted the final, like, had four words that were going to be the final 4 words of the show, and she didn't get to do it in its original run. So everybody was like, oh my God, she's going to get to do the 4 final words. And so that morning I woke up. Did I skim to the very last episode to hear the 4 final words? Yeah. Was I mad? Yeah.
What were the 4 final words?
It's a conversation between Rory and Lorelai, and Rory says, Mom. Lorelai says, yeah. Rory says, I'm pregnant. So it's just like history is repeating itself all over again.
Okay. Can you tell I've never seen Gilmore Girls?
I can tell. Alexis Bledel, you know, some of us were shaped by Gilmore Girls as a youth.
My sisters loved it growing up, but like, it's just not one of those shows. It's like Friends, where it's just like, it's got a huge following and people that love it, that I just like, the train hit past me by.
Yeah,
and
that's how I feel about
wish
Friends.
to get on it.
But it is something that, like, you can, if you want to spoil it for yourself, like, I spoil it for myself, and I didn't then post it all on social media. So I think, like, we just like want, it goes back to 28 years later, the Bone Temple. Humans are the problem.
Yes. I think that if that's the thesis that we're going to take away from this episode, it's that humans are the problem. Always. So Sundance, I think what would be fun real quick as we kind of get to the end of this podcast is just kind of do a quick preview of the selections that I've made. I did the online pass, which grants me 10 tickets to the online features. I'll rattle off all 10. I'm not going to go into detail on all of them.
Yeah.
I'll kind of pick up the ones that I think I'm most looking forward to that we could maybe discuss on the actual Sundance in review that we'll do after I get through all of them. It's over the course of like 4 days, and I've already kind of like tried to map out like I'm doing 2 movies this day, 3 movies this day, or whatever, and like trying to fit it in with my work schedule and everything. But
I feel an illness coming on for you. Couple sick
I'm
days.
gonna have to call in sick. We'll start real quickly with the only midnight film that I think is on the docket for online Sundance, and it's a movie called Rock Springs. I'll read real quickly. It says, after the death of her father, a grieving young girl moves to an isolated house in a new town with her mother and grandmother, only to discover there is something monstrous hidden in the town's history and the woods behind their home. I, as people know on this show, I've mentioned it pretty much every episode. I love horror. I love a good genre film. So as soon as I saw that this was the only midnight film that would be offered for online, I just knew I had to scoop it up. So this is definitely one that I am very, very excited for. Did you?
I do love a small town horror. I always find interesting because it's a similar thing to what I was saying about what I find interesting about Bone Temple is like how do you recreate society in new ways when you're kind of isolated, when you're alone, that sort of thing. So I'm intrigued. I did not buy the pass, so I will be anxiously awaiting.
Next one is Run Amok. I think this is one that you were potentially interested in.
This is the one that I considered buying a ticket for. Yeah.
Yeah. This one is about a teenage girl who stages an elaborate musical about the one day her high school wishes it could forget.
Love a musical. Love a precocious teenager who's like, I will be the one who writes the musical. Feels very Griffin in Summer. Did you see that one? A couple years ago, I think played at Tribeca. It's like a kid whose parents are going through a divorce, and he's like, well, I'm going to put on the greatest play that's ever been written. And like, it's very self-important theater kid vibe. So it feels like it would spiritually be similar to Run Amok.
I like a movie about like high school musicals and like the putting on of a stage show. I'm very curious on the comedy elements of it.
They don't say what the event is, right? That she's basing it on. Okay. I'm very curious about that.
No. Another one on here that's got a bit more name recognition to it in terms of its cast is a movie called Josephine. This stars, where is he? Channing Tatum and Gemma Chan. This one, after 8-year-old Josephine accidentally witnesses a crime in Golden Gate Park, she acts out in search of a way to regain control of her safety while adults are helpless to console her.
I can't imagine like having a child be like your key witness in a trial.
Yeah.
Like, no disrespect to children, but I'm sorry.
That is a great point. I would not feel confident. Definitely looking forward to this one. It's competing in the U.S. dramatic competition. I'll rattle off a few more here. We got Take Me Home. There's a movie called Bedford Park, Union County with Will Poulter, I can see. Chasing Summer. We got another musical movie called The Musical with Rob Lowe in it. Carousel is another one. I believe that this one has the good old Chris Pine and Jenny Slate.
Love Chris Pine.
I love Chris Pine as well. I forgive him for Don't Worry, Darling.
Is it bad that I kind of morbidly want to rewatch Don't Worry, Darling? I have not seen it since the theater, and I'm kind of like, should I see it again?
If you just want to watch it to watch Florence Pugh for a little bit,
I think that's pretty much the main.
I could understand that. That might be it. In which case, I would co-sign that. And then the last one here is a movie called Z, I believe. This is coming from our boy Kogonada, who did After Yang and Columbus. Yeah, Columbus.
And a big, bold, beautiful journey.
Which I didn't mind. I'm a sucker for stupid, sappy little romance movies like that. Colin Farrell is singing How to Succeed in Business, so it's great.
Yeah, I do still really want to watch it, but I have not watched it yet.
It is absolutely as cliche and cheesy as it looks, right. But sometimes I need that. Sometimes I just need something that's like really sweet.
Yeah,
all the way down.
I agree, and I think that like a lot of issues that I have with people who talk about movies or who write about movies is that like they look at something like that, or they look at a rom-com or something, and they critique it because it's not. They say it's bad because it's not the highest brow piece of film art that they've ever seen. Mm-hmm. But is never, I don't think A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey or whatever it was called was ever trying to do that. I think it is trying to hit that very sentimental, sincere note of like, we are all the people, like the sum of all of our experiences, and some of them are painful and some of them mm-hmm. are beautiful. And that's how we are the way that they are. Like, and I think it is crazy to try and judge it as something that it's not. And I think that's the problem that a lot of people are, you know, that I have issues with in a lot of critic talking.
I agree, because it does feel a lot like the critic and the person talking about the movie is bringing, we kind of go back to the whole thing about expectations and like what we're looking for mm-hmm. in a movie when we talked about like sort of what we were hoping for with 28 Years Bone Temple. But like with a movie like this, it's like you go into it and like you can kind of see what it's trying to do, and then you can already start to like compare it to maybe better versions of movies or movies that have executed on similar themes or narratives that were maybe better, but the movie isn't trying to imitate those things or reach those heights. It is just confidently being what it is, and not to, and I think that there should always be room for those types of movies. Just as much as I think that there should be room for like nonsense action movies like Fast and Furious, or like Michael Bay's Ambulance, which I think is a really fun action movie, but it's stupid and it's nonsensical and it's over the top, but it's not Casablanca. It's not.
You wouldn't know. You've never seen Casablanca.
Okay, let me bring up a movie that it's not Seven.
There you go.
The Housemaid is not a huge, crazy, substantial piece of motion picture.
Right.
But it's a damn good time because it knows what it's doing. It knows its audience, and it's delivering on exactly what it promises mm-hmm. and is catering to the audience with which all of it was designed to work for. And if you're either part of that audience or you're not, right. and if you're part of it, then it's like, great, this is your jam. I happen to be a part of that. It's not typically my type of movie, but like I understood what it was doing and the wavelength it was riding. Mm-hmm. And I was able to get on that wavelength and enjoy the ride. And I would rather have more of those in the future, populated among all the other things that we love about the various different types of movies and auteur directors versus not, you know?
Since you brought up The Housemaid, it's been haunting me since I've seen it. The part
haunting you, I love it.
Truly, the part where Sydney Sweeney walks down the stairs when she's about to go on that date with the husband.
Sure.
And she's like supposed to be stunning in this dress. It mm-hmm. is the most horrible dress I've ever seen in my life.
Okay.
You didn't think so? You were like, you looked at that and you said, that's a hot girl dress. That's not a dress for a 50-year-old woman.
Well, I mean,
come on.
I wasn't like, oh, it's a hot dress, but I was like, well, she looks very beautiful.
Yeah, she looks very nice if she was going to like a ladies who lunch function, not like, oh, I'm finally going to bang the husband that I've been wanting to bang this whole movie tonight.
Well, so did he give her the dress, or did she find it?
Amanda Seyfried gives it to her. She's like, I'm donating all of these clothes. Do you want any of them?
Okay, yeah.
And so she picked that.
They were going to a play, to be clear.
They were going to a musical.
Okay.
It is Nick, it's the worst dress I've ever seen.
Is it the worst dress you've ever seen in terms of like the dress itself or the dress for the occasion?
The dress for the occasion and the character. There's not a chance in this world that Sydney Sweeney on her little hot girl nonsense in this movie is picking out that dress. She is going to a political function in that dress. That is like, I'm a politician's wife dress and we are going to a speech dress. This is not...
That does feel like a State of the Union dress.
Exactly. Pin a little American flag pin on it and boom. But no, this is not hot girl. This is not hot girl going to a musical in New York City dress.
Well, that was fun.
Sundance and the problems with film criticism today, and Sydney Sweeney's dress.
And we're gonna have to clip that out because I feel like that could be a good little anecdote for us.
I'm gonna have to find a picture of that dress so that everyone will be on my side.
We should add it as a poll, yay or nay. Dress to impress. Well, thank you all for listening in, watching if you did. This has been another episode of I Think You'll Hate This. Went a little long, but you know what? I think it was rather nutritious in some of the conversations that we had. Do you disagree?
No, I agree. I think it's so nutritious, daily fiber intake.
Daily fiber intake. You can find us on all of your social platforms, pretty much all of them. We're on X, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I think you'll hate this sometimes.
Well, they're in the description. Don't worry.
They're in the description.
Don't worry.
They should be, yeah.
They
are.
Abbreviations
and all that jazz. Go ahead and follow us on any of those and hop in the comments. Let us know what you think of the episode. We're obviously here on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can also find us on Tina's homepage. You want to talk about that real quick?
I think you'll hate this.com. It'll take you right there. That's it.
She's done all the work. I tried to be absent for most of that, but I think we got it all set up. Women in STEM. All right. I think that'll do it for us. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll get you all on the next episode.
Go see a movie.
Go see a movie.